We coming to you every Tuesday from 8 to 9 Eastern Standard Time. And on this podcast, we break down relationship topics, the ins and outs of them. And, we go over the things that your parents didn't teach you about dating in the 21st century because they couldn't possibly know what was going on in the 21st century. You feel me? So, anywho, before we get started with the broadcast or, our video, I just want to make sure you guys subscribe to our channel, hit the like button.
Do that.
And to make sure that you leave us comments also letting us know what you think about the topic of the day. So without further ado, drum roll, please.
What are we talking about?
What is our topic today, Uncle B?
Hey, today we talking about sex and what happens after sex. The sexual aftermath and the rules of engagement. What are you supposed to do? And
yes.
Not supposed to do. Yeah.
You know what? I forgot to turn down this the TV volume.
Okay. Are we getting some back feedback?
Listen, we keeping it real here, okay? So it's all good.
And it's a good thing you did wear clothes. Yeah.
Oh my God, was I exposed? Oh no!
You was coming close. You was coming close.
My God!
If you were like, I'm at home alone, so thong, it would have been a different show.
I might have to put like a boop up.
Yeah. So yeah. I think this is an important topic because a lot of people get this part confused when it comes to having sex. They're just like, oh, this is what we're supposed to do without thinking it all the way through. And with experience and thinking it through, you come up with some different answers. Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
So, all right. So when it comes down to sex and the rules of engagement, what is it, that you see from a woman's side?
So, we have like 3 different views going on here.
Okay.
No, 2 different views. We have the men's side, of course, and then we have the woman's side. But even within each of those, there are different ways that people view sex and dating. So for women, a lot of times, unfortunately, we don't always ask the questions up front. Now, I think that as we get older, a lot of times, women become wiser after having like, a couple of failed situationships going on, but we don't ask certain questions. And I think the problem is that in the beginning of the relationship, or let's just say in the beginning when you're dating, before we even get to sex, there should be some type of boundaries or something put in place that happens before you get to the sex. So we should be getting to know each other, and women need to ask the men questions like, especially if a woman is dating a guy because she wants to get serious and, like lead to the road of marriage, then she needs to ask those type of questions, but not ask in a desperate way. Because I've heard guys say that sometimes, like say how women are like, they haven't even gotten a chance to find out what your name was before you're asking, you want to get married? How many kids you want to have? We have to find ways to sort of, finagle that, you know what I mean? And gracefully kind of insert that question in there. But that's important to know because I don't care what any woman tells you about, I just want to have sex and then that's it. Yes, there are times that we can do that, but the average woman, and in majority of the cases, women are going to get attached to some degree. They're going to get attached.
Oxytocin. You got them chemicals going.
I'm saying, and women do this all the time. We're like, I'm not going to be serious, or, I'm not thinking anything of this, or, blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, sex happens and she's like, oh, that's my man. Or, well, I think he liked me because, the way he was talking to me during sex, he said he wanted me to have his baby. I'm like, you sure that wasn't fun talk? So there's questions that we have to ask just to make sure that, we're on the right page. And with women, that's probably one of the biggest downfalls. What you think? What from the man's side?
Well, I think it's two pieces. The first piece, and I think it's on the women's side too, but for men, it's like, as soon as we see you, it's that question of like, are we trying to just have sex, or are we trying to, you know, the are we trying to take you home to mama? That's those are two completely different thought processes, and I think what ends up happening is, especially in today's world, where women can wear anything, bonnets, whatever you want to wear. I actually just saw it was a woman wearing flesh skin type leotard, yoga pants. I mean, basically, she looked like she was naked. She was loading the car and it was just ass hanging out the car. It's like, what in the? Okay, you're not meeting mama, but yeah,
I'll hit it.
You make that happen. So there's that setup, and then to the point where you're talking about asking those questions and everything. You have guys who are different in different states, and a lot of times, a lot of people like to clump us all together and say, "Hey, men are just here for the sex." It's like, well, okay, we want a relationship, but we also, just like everybody, you're concerned about the quality of the sex. It's like that's a part of the life. I always, I give it this: you only having sex like in a relationship. Even consistent sex is only 1%. So the other 99% is how much time you're spending with the person. So when it comes down to it, it's like, well, the sex can affect the other 99. It can make it either better or it can make it worse. If you don't, and that's if you know the other 99%. If you're trying to hit it and quit it, you don't need to know. Maybe 30%. It's like, hey, how you doing? Where you live at? Do you have any diseases? Have any children? Got a dude breaking out of jail trying to come and kill any man who touches you, you figure them things out, then you can have sex, and it's like, okay, well, that's either that little 33% could get better or worse, just depending on what happens afterwards. So if you're not looking for a relationship, that's fine. If you're looking for a relationship, and that's what we're talking about, the rules of engagement, what happens afterwards is always about asking those questions up front, the communication. So with relationships, it is about what happens next. So you need to find out before you have sex, you need to find out, how is this person consistently? Is this person up, down? They'll call you back, they won't call you back, they're moody sometimes, blah blah blah. Is that something that you want to deal with? And then when you get into the actual conversation piece, it's like, well, okay, do you want to have kids? How many kids do you want to have? What's your background like? All that is filling that in that other 99%, so that when you finally do have sex, that 1% of that time, it's going to dramatically affect everything else. So if you don't know anything, you're just filling it in. People will make assumptions like, oh, well, she said she wanted to have babies, and I say I want to have babies. That means that we want to have babies. No, both of y'all said y'all wanted to have babies.
You didn't say it together. I need to say that.
You ain't say how you gonna take care of the babies. People get into discussions about how to raise babies before they even have babies. You can take it too far too. But it's really about what is going to happen after sex. You can't go in saying, oh, I'm assuming that this is what's going to happen. Oh, we're gonna have sex, and I got that I got that Wakanda joint, and she's gonna be all in love with me, or I got the ill nana, ooh nana, all that stuff. And it's like, no, to somebody else you do, but you run into somebody who's like, hey, it was all right. Because everybody is different. So your sex game could be great, amazing to one person, and suck to somebody else. So
let me ask you this though.
Mm-hmm.
So in regards to the whole questioning process, I get everything that you're saying, and I feel where you're coming from. We are in agreement with that. You got to have the communication, and definitely you want to see people in all aspects of life. And I'm a big firm believer in seeing a person in every situation. So I want to see what you're like when you're stressed out. I want to see what you're like when you're excited. I want to see what you're like when you're having anxiety, when you're going through difficult times. I want to see all that. But here's one thing that I've noticed in my own personal dating experience. I notice sometimes with guys, right? I have to we have to go the long haul in order for me to really get how like if a guy is really truly serious sometimes, or how serious they are, or how, I should say, authentic they are. I have talked to guys before where I have asked them questions about themselves, and they will turn around and ask me the same question I asked. They'll give me like a blanket answer, and then they'll turn that question back around on me. And it almost feels like they're trying to gauge where I'm at so that they can match me. And so they can say what I say. So sometimes what I've tended to do is, while I'm talking to them, I'll give like a kind of a blanket answer myself, but it's not like real blanket because I can't help it. Like, I'm just who I am. I'm gonna always be authentically who I am, but I won't go into any real detail. And I want to see what that person is gonna say. And if they repeat what I say in any way, then I'll try to dig and try to figure out, like, well, what do you mean when you say that? Even though I didn't explain what I meant because they never asked. But what do you say to that? Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, how sometimes guys can do stuff like that.
Well, I mean, to me, it just shows that the communications is off. You know, it's if you're, well, I mean, really, when it comes down to it, if you're trying to be with a person that's long-term relationships, then you have to be real. Because it's like, at the end of life, it's like, well, you changing your wife's Pampers. You change you.
But what I'm saying is, I feel like sometimes guys don't. It's almost like they're afraid to step on a woman's toes. They're afraid to say the wrong thing. So what they rather say is what it seems like you want to hear, rather than this is what I genuinely feel.
Yeah, and once again, that's a communications problem. So it's not, you know, it's not being real. It's like, yeah, I don't know my answer, so let me check what your answer is going to be so I can match your answer. It's like, I understand that because I did that in high school. But when after you get,
I'm saying,
yeah, I mean, that's a simp move. That's like whatever I can do to just appease you, and it's not good for the man or the woman because you're not being real. You're not giving a real answer, and even worse, you don't know what the answer is. So, so that person's asking you a question, and you can't go into your mind. I mean, because what does happen, once again, for men is provide and protect, for women is nurture and communicate. So y'all have that communication piece down in terms about being open, about talking, and going in depth and everything like that. Finding the words is a little bit more difficult for men. So, but it becomes easier once you're talking with the right woman to be able to express yourself, because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to be able to freely express ourselves, and everybody wants that. But for men, it's a little bit harder because we're trained not to freely express ourselves by other men and by society. And then you meet with a woman who wants you to freely express yourself, and you're like, oh shit, okay, how do I have no training in this. Can I kick somebody's ass? I can kick somebody's ass. Let me kick somebody's ass. But you want me to sit here and have a 5-minute conversation? Oh shit! Yeah, that's the part.
But I would think by the time you get to be a certain age, you would have had enough experiences. No. I mean, no.
I mean, if you get to a certain age, I mean, like I said, it was. With discussion that you're having is like, that's like high school, early 20s. But once you start figuring things out, I mean, but it's that whole thing of being afraid. It's communications is about being.
I'm talking about guys that are grown. Doing that.
Yeah. It's still being about being afraid. If you're like, I've tried doing certain things and it didn't work. And I come across this one woman who's like, I'm hoping this is working. I'm hoping this is the one. Yeah. She's asking me questions. Shit. I mean, it could still be difficult. It's, for men, it's about confidence. And so you have to be confident in yourself to be like, okay, I'm going to open myself up. And I would say this to women, once again, that communications part. If you can get a man to open up and communicate well, you've beat out all the extra asses and titties and plumped up all this other. Because
hey, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, because Because at the end of the day, if you can't, without that communications piece, it's like the whole goal is to pick one person out of billions. And it's
But
obvious.
sometimes the guy, I think, is also just looking to have sex. That's how I feel. But sometimes guys will be like, oh, it's not about that. But it's like, I don't have anything else to go on. Like, if you're not communicating and expressing yourself and what you want, you're just trying to appease me the whole time. It just feels like, well, what do you want from me? Because you're not saying what you want. And if you're just hanging around me and that's good enough for you, then it makes me kind of wonder, what the hell do you want? Because I know you want something. Mm-hmm. You're not just hanging around because you don't want anything. You want something.
Well, I mean, I think the
or
thing
enjoy it, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, it's like we give, I mean, rightfully so, but also without examination, so much weight to sex. It has a huge amount of weight because, like I said, you can know 99% of a person you have sex and the sex is horrible. That can fuck up the whole 99%, or it can take that 99% to a completely different level. And if the main focus is always on sex, and even from the woman's point of view, if the woman is like, that's what the man wants, he's only paying attention to sex, he only wants sex, and that's been taught to women, it's been taught to men. That's all you want is you just want sex. It's all about the sex. It's all about the sex. It's like, well, it gets to a point where it's like, well, hold up, that doesn't make any sense. There are men and women who have relationships. So if a man just wants to have sex, there would be no marriage. There'd be no fathers. I mean, there wouldn't be fathers in the home. There wouldn't be people around. There would guys would just randomly fuck whoever. That doesn't make sense. So obviously that thought process, it diminishes men. It just makes us like, oh yeah, you're just one dimensional. You just want to have sex. It's like, well, at some point, yeah, you want to have we have that, the testosterone, the aggressiveness. That's what we're supposed to do. Our entertainment set is in the center of our bodies. So it's like, well, yeah, we want to get out there and enjoy ourselves.
But there has to be a way to bring it together. Like, that's kind of like what this is about. Like, when you're communicating, during all of these rules of engagement, there has to be a way of bringing that together so that when a woman is initially talking to a man, the man's talking to the woman, that she doesn't feel like, because women do feel like sometimes we can feel like we're being used by a man, or that the man wants to use us for sex because he has absolutely nothing to say and he doesn't express any interest. He expresses nothing. He just wants to be around. And sometimes the guys just want to hang around. They want to bring a bottle over, or, I mean, I'm not saying this is, of course, it's not every guy, but I'm just saying a lot of times with guys, I'm kind of leery, and I just feel like it's a little suspect with that. So there has to be a way to kind of get that out and gauge what page a man is on. The same way the man should also be asking a woman questions. Because I think that when a man is not asking questions to a woman, it can be also to his detriment. If he turns around and just has sex with her, and he didn't ask her the right questions, because guess what? Women are overly emotional in a lot of cases. I mean, I happen to be one of the real logical headed ones, but there's a lot of women out there that after you have sex with her, she like, oh, you my man now. It don't matter that y'all didn't have a conversation. You my man. She has already planned the wedding. She already knows all the guests that she knows her dress. Matter of fact, the dress has been picked out like years ago. She already know the ring that she wants her best friend to hint to you about. So I think that guys, they're not aware of those things that go on with women, so they can actually cause their own issues by not being forthcoming with information about what they really want. And like you said earlier, it's billions of people out here. There's bound to be millions of those people who are women that just want to have sex. Just go be with a woman that wants to have sex if that's what you want. But if it isn't, then men need to understand. They need to learn how to open up and express themselves.
Well, I mean, you have a point. It's a learning process, because for women, it's innate and is reinforced by other people who around you who are talking a lot. For men, it's not innate and it's not reinforced by other men, because if I look at my uncles and everything, cool people and everything like that, but it's like, this is the way you holler at a woman. Hey! Hey, what's your name, girl?
We have all had our fair share of that.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, that's not.
And
helpful.
then then they get the looks like.
Exactly.
That should tell you something too.
So there's no real education. You know, like I always say, in schools they don't teach you about sex, relationships, or money, or how to count your own money. So you know, when it comes to relationships, everybody's sort of guessing, and for a lot of men, you know, our conversations about relationships is like, you know, it's either, hey man, you know, in terms of sex, hey man, did you hit that? Yes or no? That's it. And you know, or you're gonna lie some, you know, make up some shit, or you know, or if you're still with the woman, you know, Brian's in love. Yeah. It's
I do notice that guys have a tendency when they're around each other to try to play it down to the point where, and actually guys that are in love don't even want to share almost. That's something I've always been kind of curious about too, because it's like with women sometimes will play it down, but they play it down in a different kind of way. It's more like, yeah, girl, you know, I am in love, but no, I don't want to be, not yet, because I don't know. But with guys, it's more like, oh no.
And I mean, with women, it'll be like, oh, I'm not really trying to talk about it. Ask me some more questions. And for guys, it's like, yeah, I just told you, nigga, shut up.
Like, guys are always more forthcoming with bad information than good. I just feel like, but that's a whole nother topic. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, but it is that whole thing of like, you know, once again, you have that setup, you know, the pre-setup, what does she look like, blah, blah, blah. Then the setup, that conversation. I think, you know, I may need to write this like a book, or like, you know, the conversations that you need to have, you know, before having sex, because otherwise you're just sitting there thinking that I can after we have sex, then we'll have the talk, and it's like you've changed the other person's biochemistry. You now have
ain't no talking now.
Yeah, the oxytocin has kicked off, and here's the thing that, you know, and you hear it more from women than from men, but I think women need to pay attention to this. You are not allowed to assume what is supposed to happen after you have sex. You're not allowed to sit there and say that, oh, once we have sex, we go together, without talking about whether or not you go together. Because on both sides, there may be reasons you have sex and it's like, oh, well, you know, he was like this, or he lasted this long, or
I'm so mad you was like, you are not allowed.
Hey, because what can happen, here's the thing.
No, what it's can happen, true though.
Yeah, what can happen is the exact opposite. Now you sitting there like, oh, we had sex and it was like, you know, horrible, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, he's calling like every 5 minutes. He's like, oh, you didn't return my text. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I'm standing outside of your house and why is some other dude's car out front? It's like, that's my father's car. Oh, you in there with your father. I mean, this weird shit can happen when you don't have the conversation and you're assuming that this is what's supposed to happen. And I think that's that can be obviously dangerous on both parts, but for a lot of times women will be like, oh, he ghosted me, and it's like, well, how often were y'all talking before? Did you, after you had sex? And you know, also there's this thing like, you know, the longer you're with someone, it's like, well, I'm going to stay with him for, you know, the longer I make him wait, the more he'll want to stay with me. Once again, it goes to the pre-setup. If he's already thought this is just for sex, then there isn't like, oh, I'm going to wait 6 months later. He's going to be like, oh, when I finally have sex, I'm going to want to stay in a relationship with her. It's like,
yeah, he's going to just hang around, probably have sex with this one and that one while he's waiting to have sex with you.
And once again, this is, you know, women do this too. Nowadays, women do this too, and it'll still, you know, it's like, oh, this man's fault, blah blah blah. No, society has just sort of set this thing up where it's like women and men are equal, so men and women are going to act equally in terms of cheating, having sex, having one night stands, etc., 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 etc. So it's still men who are getting a bad rep, but there are women who are affected by it because they're not understanding that, yeah, this is going to have a detrimental effect on you in the future. And of course, you have the other things, the STDs, the children,
Right.
the consequences with it. So, it's like that. You got the setup, you need to ask those questions, and then it comes down to the sex itself. That's the part that gets really tricky, because now you're talking about, people's tastes. And I'm a proponent of people just making out and heavy petting so you can figure stuff out first.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just like, that one night stand type of thing is like, oh yeah, we're kissing for like 5 minutes, then next thing clothes are off. And it's like
down, check out, wow.
Yeah, the porn scene, everything. But you're dealing with people who, typically in those situations, you may be coming back from the club, can't remember the number of drinks that you had. So, her level of sex which is usually like on 10, could be on 4, because she's like, I'm damn near passed out. He's coming back from the club. So, earlier on when he was like in his 20s, he could go leave the club 1 o'clock at night, had about 15 drinks, not 15 drinks, but good 3-4 drinks, and like bang it out. And then 10 years later, he's asleep.
Hey.
So, there's that thing in terms of the act itself. So it's like, you have to have conversations like, hey, I've had issues in the past in terms of like sexual health. Just every once in a while I'll lose an erection, or she could be like, yeah, every once in a while.
But I think that's also for more mature people, and everything that you're saying is true. However, I think that there is still like, I don't even know if this is the right word to use for that gestational period, but there's a waiting period where you can even be that open and honest. Because if you're being open and honest with somebody and you don't hardly even know them, and you're telling them, hey, I got sexual problems, that person may not want to stick around. So there does have to be a period of, I would say, bonding, a period where you kind of get to know the other person in a way where sex is just off the table. You're just getting to know each other as two human beings. And then the sex will come on its own over time. Like, I mean, of course, if you're attracted to each other, you already know that both of y'all are going to eventually probably want to boink. as long as both people don't say anything, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, boink. As long as no one says anything that, turns the other one off. But sometimes people can say things to turn the other person off if they mention it too early. So I think that maybe the conversations should really probably be deep in terms, especially if you're over a certain age. Like I would say definitely by the time you're in your 30s, the conversation should be a little bit deeper, like in terms of, and I hate to say it like this, because I know people ask these questions sometimes, but they don't really give it any real thought. But you should be asking questions like, what is a person's goals? How do they, see themselves down the line in the future? Like what do they want to be doing? Because especially as a man, let's say a woman says, oh, I'm in school right now. I don't know. I just got Kevin Samuels PhD. I just got that in my mind, but
I'm a PhD.
Yeah, I'm a PhD. But what if a woman is going to school for her PhD and that's not what you want? Right? Or if she tells you she has plans of opening up, something major, but maybe you want to have kids in the next couple of years. You got to put those type of questions out there, and they need to be presented almost immediately, but not in a forceful way. Like I guess people have to kind of take their time and try to, figure out what's the best way to present it. Like I know when I talk to people, I don't like for things to feel like it's forced and like they have to answer to me or else. I like things to sort of flow naturally, and I just kind of ask in a very curious and inquisitive way, like, well, what do you think about this, or how you feel about that?
Yeah.
And then hopefully I'll get a real response. And then, women and men, we both have intuition. And I feel like, women got to use that women's intuition, and don't put on your blinders, because women are good for that. Good for putting on their blinders, pretending like they didn't hear the bad stuff and only hanging on to the good. Then when the bad stuff happens, it's like, oh, he tricked me. He ain't trick you. You tricked yourself because you shut your ear off because you just was interested in this guy. So I don't know. I just think that people need to get over their fear of asking difficult questions, and probably really, this is what I really think it boils down to. people are afraid to be alone. And when they meet someone and they feel like, wow, I'm so excited, like that excited feeling in the beginning is just so
addictive.
It is just, yes, it is. Because it's like, wow, like I've been going all this time and I don't like anybody. Now all of a sudden I finally meet someone and they're great. They're perfect. So you're afraid to ask a question or say anything that will turn that perfect situation into an imperfect situation. So I feel like people have to get over that and just ask the question. And then women have to use their intuition. Men have to use their intuition, especially if they have a goal of accomplishing something like being together as a couple.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful point, because I mean, two things. One, it takes time. I mean, I think that's the main thing. It's like as I was saying before, either talking to you or talking to someone else, but it was like, what we had back in the day was community. It was like, the Johnson girl down at church, have you talked to her? Have you seen her? Her cousin, you played with her cousin when you was growing up, and her brother is blah blah blah. You knew something about this person. You knew the community they came from, and so there was a level of communications. Community.
I was about to say, you froze for a minute. Go ahead though.
Yeah. There was a level of communications and community. Those two things went together, so that the conversations that you have to have now weren't as needed, because we both grew up in a farm community, and you like being in a farm community. I like being in a farm community, as compared to I like being in a farm community. You want to go to the city. We know something enough about each other that our communications can be easier. Now you're taking two people from all over America, get together in a city, and now you're taking years of being separate, no community at all, and you have to figure this stuff all out. And a lot of times,
real talk.
Yeah, a lot of times people are like, "Well, we got to figure this out within the first 3 weeks, so we can have sex." And it's like, well, you're not going to cram that community that built itself up over like 30 years of your life or whatever before you were even born to give you all this information. And I'm just going to talk to this person in 3 weeks. We're going to figure it all out, have a conversation, have some sex, and then, oh wow, we know enough about each other to keep this thing going. So it's like,
and I can see that that's how people that were like college sweethearts or high school sweethearts, I always feel like that's why they end up working out so well a lot of times. Or sometimes they may leave and then they come back together. Because like you said, it's like that foundation has been built, and it was built, in a way that was a lot more organic. Like there was no trying to accomplish a goal. It was just two people. They happen to like each other. They sat next to each other in sixth period. And, all of a sudden they were at the bus stop together, and then they giggled. And next thing you know, they're going to the mall. He gets her an ice cream cone, like simple things, but you're building this organic experience with one another. So like you were saying, I mean, if you're two people from two different sides of the planet, that organic experience is not there. So you are kind of like trying to fast track it. And I think the older you get, the harder it gets, because now you're trying to fast track something, and people now are not just coming to the table with their own foundation from birth, but now they got baggage that comes from, a relationship that they might have previously been in that really, did a number on them, in addition to their dating experiences. And now it's like, oh, you're guilty, So.
Ooh, yeah. Because I mean, and it's also a lot of, that baggage part is huge. And that's the part that's confusing to a lot of people, because you can inadvertently bring baggage. And if you're not made to be aware that, a lot of times, this other person has baggage. It's like, nah, as long as you have memories, you have baggage. So, there's some things. And also the other thing about being, the older you get, the more gap you have in terms of relationships. So it's like, when you're in your 20s, you're running around, you can not skip from work, but you go from one relationship, but you're out at the clubs, somebody, the environments, blah, blah, blah. The older you get, it becomes like, well, it's less interaction with other people,
right?
Eligible people, because the number of eligible people goes down, and the number of places you can go to meet those eligible people goes down. And so now you have these
you have these
gaps in relationship. and you have what Kevin Samuels talks about, that relationship atrophy. You don't have your relationship muscles aren't there in terms of like, how do you
approach a woman, and
not only that, but
or
it's
even
like,
a woman.
if you're used to doing certain things, like, okay, I get home after work, Netflix and chill by yourself, where I'm just going to drink some, eat whatever, whatever crap, blah blah blah, and that's your
like
routine.
How do you be in a relationship,
Yeah,
basically?
so now you have a person that's like, oh, I'm going to call you right in the middle of the Thor's about to throw his hammer, and I'm drinking my 40, and my Popeyes is sitting right here, and you ruining my
You
life.
ain't lying about that one, because there's been some times where somebody would be like, oh yeah, we should hang out, and I'd be thinking like, I done took my bra off, man, I'm chilling on the couch. I don't feel like going out, but there's a time when I just wanted to stay out. I just wanted to hang out in the streets all day, every day. You didn't even have to. You could have been like, "Hey, what you doing? Oh, where we going?"
Exactly.
Now I'll just be like, "I don't want to go out there."
Exactly. So
then they'd be like, "Oh, can I come over?" I don't feel like even being bothered with that.
Yeah. So I mean, it is I mean, you have to recognize the transition for yourself and be real with yourself, because otherwise, you can sit there and destroy your own, sabotage the relationship that you want to be in, because you're so used to like being a certain way, and now it's like you have a person calling, a person who wants to like, you're used to doing nothing on your weekends. Now this person says, hey, let's hang out. Or the opposite, now you all of a sudden wants to hang out, and this other person who hasn't been in a relationship is like, this is my alone time, this is my quiet time, and they don't recognize it. And so they're sitting there like, why are you calling me? Why are you, can't you do something else? What's going on?
Yeah.
So yeah. It can get deep.
Well, I guess, all I can think is that, hey, when it comes to this the rules of engagement with relationships, dating, sex, and all that, I guess just to kind of wrap up everything we've been talking about, at the end of the day, like we've been saying, it's all about communication. You have to be real, especially, I mean, really, you should be real all the time anyway, but I'm saying especially after a certain age, you need to just cut out any of that fluff that, oh, well, I don't know if I don't want him to think this, I don't want her to think that. Get straight to the point. Don't worry about all that stuff. You need to get your questions answered. And you need to also use your thinking cap. Remember, they used to say that in school, put on your thinking cap. But actually, it's put on your intuition cap. And gauge whether the responses feel like they're authentic and genuine and coming from the heart. And all you can do is make the best decision you can before sex.
Yeah. And also just how you function after sex. So if you're a whole person, you enjoy being with yourself, you're fulfilled in yourself, and all these different things that are just wonderful to be, then you shouldn't act different or crazy after sex. Like all of a sudden, like you had a conversation with a person, it's like, okay, this is the way I am, this is the way I expect to be after sex, and you switch up because now it sounds like you're lying. Now it sounds like, oh yeah, we have sex and blah blah blah. We have some like, okay, I'm cool if we just talk like, once a day or once every other day, when you actually mean once every 10 minutes. If you're doing some stuff like that, then you're going to end up turning the other person off. So it's like this person can be like ready for a relationship and and thinking that you're the one, and they're going it with full faith, full intention of like carrying forth. And then if you've been lying in the setup and you have the act, and then after that you're like completely different, then it's like, well, you can't be mad at the other person for like, I was assuming you were going to be nice. But now I'm seeing that that's not the situation here. Yeah. So there we go.
Hey, so remember, make sure you talk to, I don't know, your partner or whoever they are to you. Talk to them prior Make
Take
sure
your
you're
time.
on the same page. And
Take
after
your time.
sex, yes, like don't even think of. I mean, I ain't saying don't think about sex. It's kind of hard to not think about sex when somebody's sexy next to you. But I'm saying you just gotta keep it. Like just be cool. Just understand it's gonna come about eventually. As long as you guys are on the same page, because it ain't nothing like pain afterwards. Just go ahead and rip the band-aid off in the beginning. If he ain't for you, she ain't for you, you just gotta let that shit go before it turns into something even worse. Just saying. But listen, we want y'all to please tell us, what do you think about what we talked about?
Do that in the comments.
Yes, leave us comments. Let us know what you thought about what we're saying. Are there any tips or tricks that you have? Make sure you like this video again and subscribe to our channel. And let us know also, like, what kind of topics do you want to hear about? Like, what kind of things would you like for us to talk about or explore? All right. So again, every Tuesday, what time?
8 p.m.
Hey, 8 to 9
Eastern
Standard Time.
Hey.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, with us every week. Come back and keep seeing us.
Love you, nieces and nephews. Love you.
Toodaloo.
Toodaloo. Peace out.